blood running through my veins. I swore that.
Hi guys! So today is going to be something I haven't discussed or touched at all on my channel whatsoever. It's a different category that I'm thinking about doing now that I'm into reading. I have time to do it. Well, I fit time into reading now that I've graduated. So obviously it's a category about books, and it's going to be a mix of book reviews, like my opinion on them, if I liked it. And today is going to be the discussion on 50 Shades of Grey. Now, if you're watching this, either you are not really sure about you're on the fence about getting it, you've heard reviews about it, but you're not really sure, or you've either read it and you want to see other people's input, which I'm happy that you're watching this now. So, right now, I'm going to tell you off the bat, I recommend the trilogy, like 2 thumbs up. It was the best book I think I've ever read in a while, and I've read a lot of books. I have tons of books back at my mom and parents' house when I was in high school and I was into reading and actually had time. But I've never read a book, 2 books at that, within a 2 weeks time span. That's never happened before. I could not put the book down. Now, if you're not sure about what 50 Shades of Grey, if you've never heard of that before, which you should, it's by the author E.L. James, and the first book, book 1, as you can see right here, is 50 Shades of Grey, and it is seriously the best. A little bit of background, I believe she's from London. She's overseas author, and she's written 3 books, 50 Shades of Grey, 50 Shades Darker, and 50 Shades Freed. Both of them have been on the #1 New York's bestsellers list. This was #1. #2 was her second book, and #3 was her third book, of course. And she has topped the charts. Everybody's talking about 50 Shades of Grey. Now, you would either love this book or you'd either hate it. It's either or. But everybody I've talked to, all of my friends who've read the book, we are in love with this book. I mean, the way she writes makes you feel like you're the character or you know the character. And personally for me, I really felt like I was the character Anastasia still. Now, before I go into detail about the characters in any of these novels, I will say that if you have not read the book, I don't want this to be a spoiler, but there's no way for me to talk about the book without talking about the individual characters. So I won't go into detail. I will just talk about them as a person as a whole, so you can kind of get to know who the character is before, I guess purchasing the book, because I don't want to spoil anything for you guys. So, yeah. But I will say now, if you haven't purchased the book, go. I promise you, it's the best book you'll ever read. If you like Twilight, which it has nothing to do with Twilight, trust me. I think it's a lot better than Twilight, personally. Then I guess you're old enough to read this. But I really and thoroughly enjoyed this. The characters, I seriously thought Christian Grey was real. And when I finished the book, it was like bittersweet because I knew it was no 4th book. And I would find myself at work, if I wasn't reading, thinking about what is Christian Grey doing? And Christian Grey, I'm going to back up a little bit because I feel like I'm going all over the place. Back to the author. She writes like as if it's from experience. For some reason, I feel like when she writes, I am taken to the place. I'm physically there, and I know these people personally. And each chapter isn't like you read a chapter and it switches from a different point of view. You keep reading, and I feel like the chapters are just inserted there so you know where you left off. Which I love about this book. That's probably why I couldn't put it down, because once it gets started, you just have to keep going. You keep going, and there's no stopping point. I will say in the beginning of the chapter, I think it was chapter 1 through 3. Yeah, chapter 3, 1 through 3 was kind of stiff for me, but I think it was because she wanted us to understand who Anastasia was. She wanted us to understand how the persona, how she lives her life, just how she, her character, who she is. And so it was kind of, I was like, oh God, this is going to be, I was like, oh, I didn't understand why people were so hyped up about it in the first 2 chapters, because I wasn't taken away. I thought as soon as I read this book, I would love it and I wouldn't be able to stop reading it. But once you get to chapter 4 and they meet, Anastasia and Kristen meet, you won't be able to put it down, because it's just this attraction between them, and you're like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? And I don't want to get too far into depth about it, but I will recommend, this is definitely my #1 recommended read for readers out there. Not just for the month of July. I seriously believe this is going to be the top book, I think, for the year. I don't think that's just my opinion, because the people I've talked to, they really thoroughly enjoyed this book, and they seriously recommend this to anybody. I actually got recommended to read this book when I was in school. I never had heard about it, and my friend Jilly was like, have you ever heard of 50 Shades? And I'm like, no. And she's like, you definitely need to read it. And then nobody, when you ask somebody about the book, like, what's it about? You can't describe the book. You have to personally just read it. Nobody can tell you, oh, well, it's about this young girl, she's in college, because it just doesn't sound appealing. Like, oh, it's another book about, love and somebody trying to marry. But I recommend this book. The second book, obviously, is 50 Shades Darker. Now, I was kind of iffy about this book, and it's a reason why it is #2, obviously, because it's the second book she's written. But I just feel like now that after you read 50 Shades of Grey, you already understand the characters. Everything, I feel like, is kind of repetitive. There's nothing kind of new about it until you get to, I say, the middle part of the book, when something happens. I'm going to just leave it at that. When something happens and somebody's life's at risk. And I'll just leave it at that. And just how Kristen Grey is so, I guess, masculine, protective over Anastasia. And it's just really, I think, what every girl wants when she has a guy, is just somebody who is just so protective and will go out of their way. And Kristen is, I was starting to think he was a stalker, but in a really kind of in love, endearing type of way. The third book was 50 Shades Freed, and it really got good towards, I would say, the end. I was kind of iffy because I love that she wanted us to keep going, because she knew that this was the last chapter, so she tried to throw in like a little background about Kristen Grey. And his viewpoint on it. I'm not happy with them having a baby. I was kind of hoping that she lost the baby. This is going to sound so bad. I was kind of hoping that she was going to lose the baby, guys, because I felt like when she had the baby, I knew that was going to be the end of it, and there's no way for her to kind of bring Kristen Grey and Anastasia back from that, because obviously they lived happily ever after, and they would have a kid to worry about. So I know, personally, I don't think she's going to write a chapter 4, and it sounds bad that I said I kind of hope she lost the baby, but it's a fictional book, so sorry. Reason why it took me so long to do this review, first of all, was because I decided that, because I wasn't so sure about the book, I was going to go on Amazon. I read a couple of reviews, and they weren't necessarily mixed reviews. I think they got 5 stars, if I'm not mistaken. I think it still does have 5 stars. And so I decided to order offline, and I ordered the used book. And I got it for like $4, but stupid me didn't check, and I ordered the 50 Shades Freed. So I refused to read this book before reading, obviously, the first book, because that'd just be stupid. So I held on this book, and I had this for like 3 weeks. Never had the time to get around to going to the bookstore to pick up the first book, because I was busy. I was in between moving, and so I had to get something altered or something, and I had to have cash. So I had to go into Kroger, and I was like, why not check the book aisle? I mean, I wasn't expecting them to have it, and they did, and it was 25% off, so I only spent $11 for 50 Shades of Grey. So if you have a Kroger, try Kroger. If you don't have time to go to the bookstore. Lucky me, I had to go grocery shopping anyway, so, I mean, it was there. And I definitely recommend this book. I mean, it's something that it really, I feel like it puts you in in the world. Like, you are transported there and you physically think you know an Anastasia and a Kristen Grey. With these books, with this whole series, it's not about the chapters. And I think that's why I noticed once I got to the second chapter, I was like, oh, she doesn't have titles on these chapters, so we're going to see how this goes. But once you get past chapter 5, I promise you, it's not even about the chapters anymore. You're taken away. I seriously didn't realize I was already on chapter 20. Like, I looked at it, I was like, crap, I'm already in the middle of the book. And I promise you, that's how it was. And what I would do is, obviously, I have a full-time job, so by the time I get home, the only thing I want to do is sit down, relax, and I would read the book. And I have to get up early in the morning. And I found myself, like, not wanting to put the book down and going to bed at like 12:30 because I was trying to, like, at least get to a point where I was able to not dwell on what was going to happen next. And even then, when I would go to work, I would be in my head like, okay, what's going to happen next? Like, they were mad at each other. What's going to, I was finding myself trying to figure out what was going to happen. I loved the characters. I loved how she described them, and it was clear from the beginning. I am eager to try to figure out who is going to play Christian Grey. I have 2 people in mind personally that I would love to see them play it. And I'm not going to say it because everybody has their own different opinions. But if you've read this book or you have opinions, please comment below. I love talking to people who've read this book because it actually means we have something in common. And I'm eager to figure out what your input was on the book. Did you not like it as much? Did you enjoy the third book? I was kind of on the fence about it until I got to the last couple of chapters. Yeah, if you agree or you disagree, let me know down below. I didn't want this to be a long video. There's no way for me to kind of keep my mind on topic with this book because I seriously loved everything about it, and there's no way for me to cover everything without talking about the characters in detail. So personally, all I'm going to say is, through this whole review or whatever I just did, read the book. Just read 50 Shades of Grey, and if you didn't like it or if you loved it, let that be the deciding factor if you read the trilogy, the 2 other books. I will talk to you guys in my other video. I really hope you guys enjoyed this, if it ever even made any sense. And I will see you guys later.